Developing story this morning, Capital One disclosing a massive data breach that affects approximately 100 million U.S. customers and 6 million in Canada. The company says 140,000 social security numbers, 80,000 bank accounts, and 1 million Canadian social insurance numbers were compromised.
Good morning, Chris Vernon with Vernon Litigation Group. Today I want to talk to you about the Capital One data breach. Sometimes I talk about issues that are pretty specific to a certain audience, but this really applies to everybody in America. You need to do your credit freezes with the 5 credit agencies. You need to do several other things that you can read about very easily on the internet and take some precautions. But the reality is this Capital One data breach happened back in March of this year. So it happened a long time ago. It's just getting reported today. So what I thought I'd do, and this may be a little bit longer video, but kind of try to reframe what happened in a way that may give us some ideas, you and me individually, to protect ourselves from what I think is going to be a continuing pattern of these big corporations having your data stolen and really not doing anything about it. So think of it this way. Instead of your digital assets, and some people are asserting that digital assets for the average American is worth about $55,000. If you throw your personal information on top of that, let's just throw a number out there. Let's say your digital assets and your personal information is worth $100,000. So now let's say a coworker wants to borrow your car instead of your personal information and data, digital assets. Now they borrow your $100,000 car. You loan it to them because you're a good person. They take it, they put it in their driveway, they leave the window down, they leave the keys sitting on the console. So now the air conditioning guy who's working for your coworker comes by to fix the air conditioner, sees the keys laying there, sees a $100,000 car with the window down. They come back that night, they steal your car. What do you do? What do you do? Okay, the first thing you do, you probably talk to your coworker. He calls his insurance company. You call your insurance company. You report it to law enforcement, and you start to talk about it. Now let's pretend for a minute, instead of it being a car, let's pretend it is your digital assets and your personal information, which is what was stolen at Capital One by a criminal. Law enforcement's going to tell you the car, the $100,000 car, is actually now in Russia, so they can't get it back for you. And your coworker is probably going to tell him he has no insurance to cover this. And you're probably going to realize you have no insurance to cover this. So if we think about it in that light, I think it gives us some ideas of what we ought to do. The first thing we ought to do is we ought to talk about, do we need insurance? Do we need cyber insurance to specifically cover for this? We need to think about who we're loaning our car to, who we're loaning our personal information to. I've been saying this for years. You can't just willy-nilly give out your personal information to every outlet, every Walgreens, every Starbucks, every department store that requests your personal information. It is an asset you own and need to protect and has value, and oftentimes we are giving it away. Don't do that. You also have to think about, what is your coworker's responsibility here? What is Capital One's responsibility? Shouldn't they have taken more care? And I'm sure Capital One has some protections in place. We're now learning about that through the Attorney General's investigation. But did they do enough? And here's the bad part, and really the framework that helps you think about who you should be giving your information to. What if you called up your coworker and say, hey, remember that $5,000 loan that I gave you? I'm not going to pay you back. And if it's Capital One and you just call them up and say, listen, we'll call it even. We're not going to pay our debt off to you that you loaned us through the credit cards. You know what they'll say? We're going to ruin your credit and we're going to sue you. And you can't even bring up the fact that your $100,000 car got stolen because of my negligence. And I know I'm going on and on here, but the point being, you need to reframe how you think of your digital assets, reframe how you think of your personal information. And you need to understand these corporations, other than to the extent it affects their profitability, really don't care about your personal information and your digital assets. And we need to make sure they start to care. And until they do, you need to look out and find ways to protect yourself. Let's remember, whatever it is, let's make sure our money's working for us and not for somebody else. Have a great day.